Hello, everyone. It's 5:30 p.m. We call the regular meeting of the Norwalk WPCA to order. The September 18th meeting. There is a quorum present. It's 5:30 in the afternoon. I would request a motion to take the agenda out of order. Could we do that in deference to our attorney who's on the call, Darren Callahan, who has to move on for personal engagement?
Make that motion.
Made by Mr. Igneri. All in favor? Aye.
Second.
Aye.
Ostafine, Bovee, Igneri, Manella, Burnett, Smith? Smith? She's frozen. Did she raise her hand before?
No, that's a photo.
No, now she's moving. Ms. Smith? Okay, it passed. Can we now, since we have a motion, an approved motion, can we take number 4 first?
So moved.
Thank you. I guess all in favor, aye. Okay, if that passes, Ralph, would you like to do an introduction?
Sure, but Mr. Chairman, do you have to do public input first?
You want to?
I think
Okay. I'm not gonna ask for a motion to go backwards. Is there any members of the
We
public?
actually have nobody on for public input.
Okay, then let me just say for the record, is there anybody here that would like to speak? Any members of the public? There are no members of the public present to speak. Please, let's move on to number 4. Is there any presentation by staff before our attorney facilitates this item?
No.
No, we can ask Mr. Callahan to present the item, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Attorney Callahan, do you want to speak to this issue?
Yes, thank you, commissioners, for taking items out of order to accommodate scheduling for me. I really appreciate it. There are 2 items that I'll be speaking on today, but the first item addresses essentially the transfer or transmission of data from the water district to the city of Norwalk to facilitate our billing. There is a statute that without a confidentiality agreement, it generally treats the data, the consumption data, consumption being the meter readings and associated owner's name, address, service address, account number, etc., for water use by the water company as outside of public data under the our open Public Documents Act, or FOI, and generally treats as confidential. However, there is a statute that allows the city to enter into an agreement with a water treatment facility for purposes of billing. That statute is within the Municipal Sewers Systems Act itself, specifically at Connecticut General Statute 7-258. The Water Districts Council had reached out to me. Apparently, for years, every time we come around to a new billing cycle for our systems, which we charge a fee for, we ask them for their data, and they respond with a letter saying it's confidential, we can't give it to you. And their counsel, who I know very well, I used to work with, Brian McCann, some of you in this commission know very well. He's spent 10 plus years at least working for the city of Norwalk as assistant corporation counsel. Now moved on to private practice at Coleman & Comley and represents the water district. He reached out to me and said, hey, why don't we enter into a confidentiality agreement? And I said, that sounds like a crackerjack idea. So that's what we have here. It really is nothing more, nothing less than a confidentiality agreement. They provide the data. We need to keep it confidential, and we can only use it for the specific purpose of our our billing on our end. That's really the beginning and the end of it. If you have any questions or concerns, I'm happy to answer.
Any questions for our attorney?
I just have one question. Mr. Chairman, if I may, the charge, the NORA PCA 576 per individual account, and then it increases on a yearly basis. That's the same rate as the water rate that the ratepayers pay. So if my water bill goes up 2%, that fee will go up 2%?
The rate is actually a fee they charge for the information per file. And they just clarifying that they're going to charge us for the transfer.
Yeah, that I understand, but it also says that that fee will increase based on what their current, how does it read? Each subsequent year, that rate shall be increased by the district rate increase, which is an amount determined by the first taxing district. What is that district rate increase is my question.
It would be subject to their board's approval on an annual basis, but it's completely decoupled from their actual water rates. It's
10-4. Okay.
In fact,
I understand.
they may stay at $5.76 for the next 10 years. They just want to make clear that they have the ability to increase it.
Okay.
Anything else? Yeah, I understand this is a long-term agreement that we're planning on entering into. Is there a termination without claim clause in there someplace that if Mr. Manella just brought up a good point, if the fees become exorbitant, will we be able to
So
back
it's
out of this agreement?
It's a so this one's actually not a long-term one. But it
Oh, that's number 5. Sorry.
Yeah, it's number 5. But this
Never
one
mind.
actually we only pay if we ask. So if we ask for the files, then they'll charge us. If we don't ask for them, then we don't have to pay anything.
Fine, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, ready to call a question? All in favor? Aye. Ostafine, Bovee, Igneri, Manella, Burnett, Smith. That passes unanimously. Thank you. It is 5:38. Let's move on to number 5. Is there a motion to authorize the WPCA chair to execute any and all agreements and other documents necessary for a long-term discharge agreement with the first taxing district? Ms. Smith gets that one. Any presentation from staff, or should we go straight to the attorney?
Presentation.
Okay, Attorney Callahan, I guess you're on again.
Ralph's making me work for my paycheck today.
Yep.
All right, so this is another no-brainer in my mind. So as it stands right now, the water district has a water plant. They have to treat that water so that it's appropriate to drink. And there's a byproduct of that treatment. We'll call it water treatment wastewater that needs to be discharged, and it gets discharged out into our facility at 60 South Smith Street, our wastewater treatment facility. They do this by way of a special industrial user permit because they fall within the requirements for that permit. That is a 5-year permit. And every 5 years they have to reapply. It's issued by DEEP, and every 5 years they have to reapply. But the fact of the matter is that there is one trunk line from the water facility connecting with our system, and it's in my memo, but somewhere at Norwalk, that connects with our collection system and delivers that wastewater to our facility for treatment. There's no reason to believe that, in fact, I think it's practically possible that there'll be a discontinuance of that permit, because the fact of the matter is that without the treatment of the wastewater, they can't deliver water to their customers, including most of Norwalk. So, so if everything were to remain the same, they would be continued to discharge under an SIU permit, albeit having to go through the process of reapplying every 5 years. Counsel for the district, again, Attorney McCann approached me. They want to do an infrastructure, a very large infrastructure improvement project to their facility, something to the tune of tens of millions of dollars. And in preparing for that, they anticipate having to go out for bonding and finance the transaction through the bonding market. And so they wanted to have a long-term agreement with the city in concert with and in compliance and coordination with their SIU permit, that they essentially could look to and show the bonding, the lender, whoever that may be, that they have the ability to operate on a long-term basis, not so as not to undermine any financing they look to obtain. Of course, to the extent that they're going to upgrade their facilities, that's a win for us because it's the water we drink. So the better their facilities are, the more they're maintained, updated, and brought to current standards and conditions, or better, is a win for Norwalk. In addition, we were able to engraft into this agreement a few, I would say, add-on items that are being said are very helpful to us that wouldn't otherwise be in the permit itself. For example, the water district will be required to install a flow meter at the point of connection at their facility, so that we can actually get accurate readings of the quantity of flow, the timing of it, and the velocity and duration, and keep that data, which I understand from Mr. Kolb will help as far as our planning purposes. We also were able to successfully negotiate periodic inspections of the trunk line. The reason why we would want to do these inspections is to understand the integrity of the pipe, particularly if there were any illegal connections or indications of excessive infiltration into the pipe that may affect our what we're receiving into our system. And there are the handful of similar things, including how we would work through addressing an illegal connection. And predominantly it places the responsibility on the water district, but it does require our cooperation and facilitating that process. But ultimately it's on their dime. So we were able to, again, do something that that was beneficial to both sides, that at the end of the day, we know was going to continue under the permit anyways. And I think probably the most salient point to make here is that we do not receive any less money under this agreement than we would otherwise receive under our annual rate structure, because the agreement itself requires payment based on those annual rate increases or adjustments each year. So that's really it. It's fairly straightforward agreement. It's not that long, more or less. But I think we had addressed a lot of things that allow a better path for us to go forward with the water district in coordination with their current permit. If anyone has any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Any questions?
I have one question, or I have two questions, Mr. Chairman. So how are they charged now? Is it a lump sum? Is it a flat fee, or is it by the gallon?
It's by the gallon.
And if there's no flow meter, how are they charged? If they're adding one now, or do they already have one?
Based on historical flow data they provided the city many years ago. So having a flow meter will give more accurate flow data for us to bill them properly. Plus, we'll have flow data that we can use as part of our collection system master plan.
Go for it, Chris.
Okay. And do you expect any illegal connections on that? You said it twice, so I was kind of curious, like, do you think there's one out there?
No, I think that, repeated myself. But I think
I
that,
might be connected.
I think that it's, it was something that, I may have flagged myself or Ralph and I were discussing, thought, hey, this is a good idea. I mean, the reality is it's a very long trunk line, and to my knowledge, it's never been inspected. I think it's probably pretty unlikely that there are illegal connections, but my understanding is it does in places go through people's property, private property. And so there is at least a potential for illegal connections. And so, now is an opportunity to kind of sweep that up and kind of get a lay of the land there.
And this goes with our philosophy with the collection system master plan, trying to reduce I&I
Got it.
system. So we're holding them to the level that we hold ourselves.
Anybody else? Any other questions for Attorney Callahan?
Understood.
Good. Okay, we'll call the questions. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
In the order that I see them, Osterfine, Bovee, Igneri, Manella, Smith, Burnett, Meeks, sorry. That's unanimous. It is, thank you, Attorney Callahan. I guess we don't need you anymore, right?
I don't think so. And I just want to thank the commissioners one more time for getting me up front on the agenda here.
Look at your meeting. Thank you.
Thanks.
It is 5:47. We'll go
Thank you,
back
man.
to the regular agenda. 5:47, and we'll take up item number 3, which is approval of the meeting minutes from the WPCA held on July 17th, 2023. Is there a motion to approve, first of all? Mr. Burnett? Is there any comments, questions, corrections? Hearing none, call the question. All in favor, aye. Osterfine, Bovee, Igneri, Manella. Smith, Burnett. That passes unanimously. We did, let's see, 5 already, so go to item number 6. There a motion to authorize the Chief of Operations of the Public Works to submit the facility plan update to Connecticut DEEP. Is there a motion? Mr. Igneri, any presentation by staff?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we'll need a few minutes of your attention. We have a full presentation to present to the board. We're gonna be sharing the screen so you guys can follow us with the deck. Can everybody see the presentation? Okay, perfect. So thanks everyone. So we are here to present the facility plan update that we are due to submit to Connecticut DEEP by October 2nd. I just want to remind everyone that the last facility plan was done in 2009. And this is under consent order that we need to do an update of the plan. So with that, we're gonna just move forward with this slide.
Next slide. So we have a very strong team that's been working on this facility plan update for many months now. We have Arcadis, who is the lead for the wastewater treatment plant. We have Brown & Caldwell, our collection system team. And then we have Veril for legal assistance related to items related to the consent order. And like I said, Veril is going to give a little background on the consent order. Arcadis will provide some goals and focus areas and population flows and loads of the treatment plant. And then the Brown and Caldwell team is going to talk about outfall 002 and the collection system. We'll provide evaluation of recommendations, and WPCA staff will talk about a summary at the end about the facility plan and next steps.
Thanks, Ralph, and good evening, everyone. As always, a pleasure to discuss topics like this with the WPCA board. As some of you will remember, in September of last year, 2022, I provided a detailed discussion of the consent order. My remarks on the consent order will be more streamlined tonight, giving you some background to help work our way through this presentation this evening. Again, as some of you may remember, through 2021 and the early part of 2022, the WPCA and its project team worked through the terms of the consent order with Connecticut Deep to address the collection system and the facility plan upgrades that we're talking about this evening. The consent order was discussed at board meetings of the WPCA during the fall of 2021 and then again throughout the spring of 2022. The board unanimously approved the consent order in April of 2022 and then was signed by the mayor in May of 2022 as well. At a high level, the consent order has two primary deliverables. One of those deliverables addresses the collection system. That was the collection system master plan that this team developed and submitted to Connecticut Deep September of last year, which is currently pending Deep approval. The second of those two primary deliverables relates to the facility plan update, which we're discussing this evening. Our anticipated filing date for the facility plan update is October 2 of 2023. As Ralph mentioned, there's a project team on board working our way through the facility plan update. That team includes Arcadis as well as Brown and Caldwell. And we'll turn to the various pieces of the facility plan and the team members to discuss the aspects of the plan moving forward.
Regarding the facility plan update on the 2009 facility plan, the WPCA and Arcadis team had already started this process prior to the consent order. The team wanted to review existing and estimate future flows and loads out through the year 2030. We're going to look at described site upgrades and enhancements from the previous facility plan that was completed in 2009. Look at treatment plant efficiencies and capabilities, the NPDES permit requirements, any changes as of the last renewal of April 1st, 2021. And then develop enhancements and recommendations in three key focus areas: outfall 002, aeration system, and final settling tanks. And Arcadis is here to talk about the next slide.
Thank you, Ralph. Vanessa McPherson here from Arcadis. I'm the project manager on our end for this facility plan update. So headline here on population flows and loads is that the plant continues to have ample capacity for treatment. You can see the figure that we're showing here on the screen has a red line at 18 MGD, which is the permitted capacity for the plant. At 90% of that 18 MGD, or the orange dashed line, that would trigger the city and WPCA to need to submit a plan to the state for how they intend to deal with the fact that they're approaching that rated capacity. But what you can see in the chart is we're well below that. So the green is the 100-day moving average of daily influent flow to the plant. And the blue line through that is the trend line that shows us trending downwards, which is really great and a testament to all the II reduction that's already been done. And so that leaves us with a current 12-month average daily flow to the plant of 12.2 MGD. So that leaves us, again, with plenty of capacity, even with the roughly 650,000 gallons per day of additional flow that we'd be projecting just based on population increases and plan development in the city through 2030, as Ralph mentioned. So again, with 12.2 and the additional flow, still well within the rated capacity of 18 MGD. And just a couple other numbers to stick in our brains here. The secondary treatment capacity at the plant is 30 MGD, and wet weather capacity is 65 MGD. So our next slide here just shows us permit considerations and process evaluation. So as Ralph mentioned, we did take a look at the current NIPD's permit that the plant operates under, which is effective April of 2021. And there are no substantial changes in the current version of the permit as compared to the last iteration, which is good. And here on this chart, what we're looking at is the fact that the plant is performing extremely well. So the red bar is the total nitrogen limit that the plant operates under. And the gold or orange bar is the general permit, which Connecticut has for nitrogen. So again, when you look at plant performance and that blue trend line, well within the permit limits for the site-specific permit and the general permit, and a downward trend, which is really a testament to operations and performance of the plant. And an added bonus in 2022, Norwalk ranked 5th in Connecticut for the nitrogen credit sharing program, which means you're selling credits or doing better than expected. We also took this opportunity in the facility plan to update the process model using actual plant data to help us with certain tasks under the facility plan update, like sizing blowers, which I'll talk about a little bit later. So all good news here from population flows and loads and a plant performance perspective. And with that, I'll turn it back to Ralph.
Vanessa. So what we're showing here is a flow schematic at the wastewater treatment plant. We have 3 areas, the 3 focus areas highlighted. The first 2, the aeration system and the final settling tanks are highlighted in orange. This is outside the consent order. These are focus areas that we're looking to enhance long-term the wastewater treatment plant and also for asset preservation of the facilities at those 2 critical processes. The third, the green box, is outfall 002-1, which is our wet weather process and discharge, which only activates less than 4 times a year, typically in a typical fall year. The next slide is Beryl's going to talk about. Oh, sorry, if we can go back to the previous slide. The next slide, we are going to talk about outfall 002-1 in more detail. There's a couple options. Originally, Arcadis looked at adding treatment at the facility for outfall 002. And when we looked at that, we started looking at an alternative approach, which ties us back into the collection system and approximately 206 miles of pipe and looking at what we can do to reduce flow to the treatment plant. So Matt's going to talk about the advanced elimination of outfall 002 on the next slide.
Thanks, Ralph. As I mentioned in the previous slide that I discussed, the consent order with Connecticut Deep addresses 2 different areas within Norwalk system. One is the collection system that was addressed in the collection system master plan. The second is the facilities plan update. And within that facilities plan update, there are 2 additional areas or 2 options that the city can use to achieve compliance with that consent order. We have those 2 options laid out here. The obligation requires the city to develop a facilities plan update, which, as was mentioned before, was in the works prior to the consent order. But that facilities plan is required to evaluate a range of viable and cost-effective measures to either option 1, provide outfall 002 with primary treatment or its equivalent, or option 2, eliminate outfall 002-1. Those were the 2 options that Ralph was discussing when looking at the schematic on the prior slide. Vanessa Valadares, Chief of Operations with the city, is going to talk a little bit about the approach that we took, looking first at option 1 and then option 2 moving forward.
Thank you, Matt. So what we did is first we look at option 1 and see what we could be focused to update the facility plan. So Arcadis explored options for how we could provide primary treatment during the wet weather. After all those studies, we came up to the conclusion that we would need to invest about $45 million, and we're only going to be using that outfall in an average of less than 4 times a year. So just so you can have a little bit of a background, we only have 6 wet weather events in the last 3 years. So right before we were ready to, our deadline to submit the option for the upgrade the facility, we realized that the investment, we will not gonna get much for the investment, would be $45 million to be used just sporadically. So then we took a step back, we talked to Connecticut Deep, we filed an extension. And then the last 90 days, we've been looking to see if we can actually fulfill option 2. That will be to advance elimination of outfall 002-1. So with that, we engaged Brown and Caldwell so they could look further to see if that would be an option. So now I'm gonna pass to Eric, and Eric can explain to you everything that they look for and the results.
Great, thanks, Vanessa. Eric Muir from Brown and Caldwell. As Matt stated in the intro, we can go to the next slide right there. Thanks. As Matt stated in the intro, I was in front of this board about a year ago in September with a very similar slide where we discussed the collection system master plan as it was submitted. And just as a refresher, what we did during that master plan is we did a flow metering. We did a flow metering exercise and then developed a calibrated model of your collection systems flows. And in that model, what we found is data showed us that 18 sewer sheds exhibited an excess flow generation, meaning they generate excess either inflow or infiltration, either coming from directly connected sources or deficiencies in the collection system. And so to us, that represented an opportunity given the facts that the rest of the team had just laid out in that costly venture of doing primary treatment for very little use at 002 to take a look at whether we could do something different in the collection system and reduce the flows. Next slide. So what we did is we took that model that we had generated about a year ago and looked at it again and looked at what if we supercharged infiltration and inflow removal and did it over a 10-year period, as opposed to an extended piece of collection system asset management it was originally talked about in the collection system master plan. Could we progress towards the elimination and the advancement of the elimination of 002? Could we progress the overall reduction of other overflows and SSOs in the collection system? What we did is we modeled key rehabilitation activities in those 18 sewer sheds that still exhibited high excess flow. We looked at lining the sewers, which is an asset renewal and keeps that flow out. We looked at doing epoxy lining of the manholes, grouting the pipe penetrations to the manhole connections, and then grouting the laterals connection point to the sewer mains. And then what we did is we modeled what those flow reductions would look like and pressed run on the model for several different storms. And so this table shows and describes the output of those model runs, and it turned out to be really good news. It showed an 80% reduction in overall volume going through 002 in a 1-year, 24-hour storm. That table on the right, what it shows is we're at year 0 right now, and if we tried to do this over 10 years, it shows the 2-year increments of volume reductions through the program years. And then the rows going down show the 1-year, 5-year, 10-year, and 25-year storm. So really good advancement there from a collection system standpoint, an 80% reduction in flows in a 1-year, 24-hour storm. That's extreme progress towards really renewing your assets and reducing flows substantially. Next slide. This shows that same information in a different format. Each column is a different storm event. This also shows the typical year that Ralph was mentioning a little earlier, where we can model how many activations we have in a typical year and show that volume reduction as well. There you get to almost a 90% reduction in a typical year in the volume going through 002. And the bars going across are showing the volume reductions by those 2-year increments. The one all the way to the right for each storm would be what it would end in. And so you can see graphically there's substantial reductions across the board. This slide shows the costs of a rehabilitation program like that. And so this has program years, and then length of sewers rehabbed, the construction cost, the engineering and contingency cost, the 2-year increment cost, and then a total cumulative cost. And so what you can see is the total cumulative cost over a 10-year period is pretty close to what Arcadis came up with for projections of a cost of new treatment at 002, with a total program cost of almost $50 million. And here what you're getting is really a completely renewed asset as opposed to a new asset. And this acts every single day. We're reducing flows to the treatment plant. And so there's a ton of benefits that come along with it. But the other substantial thing there is for that collection system asset, which is you guys have about 200 miles of gravity main. This would represent almost 25% renewal in that collection system. So in other words, we're touching 25% of the collection system and rehabbing it in some way to reduce those flows. So you get an asset that you already own that gets renewed and has a new 50-year life cycle on it. With that, I'll turn it over to Vanessa to talk about some of the other benefits.
So beyond that, we realized that there were other benefits that we're going to gain if we pursue with option 2, that will be the advanced elimination of outfall 002. So we have environment benefits that will be enhanced water quality in Norwalk River and Long Island Sound, reduce potential CSOs, and also reduce potential SSOs. Also, that will help us in advanced elimination of Dam Street emergency overflow siphon. And of course, we'll be in compliance with Connecticut DEP consent order because we can fulfill that obligation there. Besides the environmental benefits, we also were able to realize that we will get some energy efficiency benefits because we're going to reduce the WPCF operation and maintenance because there will be a decrease on the overall flow. Also improve the process performance through reduction in peak flow and duration of sustained high flows. So we're going to be probably consistent being operating in more optimal stage. And that is very aligned with Connecticut Deep energy efficiency goals. Another thing that is always very important to remember that Eric touched on it is that this investment will go also to preserve our assets. So we're going to be now shifting the money on assets that we already have, and we're going to give an even a longer life to it. So also now, regardless the elimination of the outfall 002, as we explained in the beginning, as part of the facility plan upgrade, we were able to identify 2 focus areas where we believe that also we can do some capital improvements in the next few years that will benefit out of it. So now Vanessa McPherson will go back and then she's gonna explain and highlight what they were able to find and what will be the benefits on also targeting those 2 areas.
Thank you. So it's fitting to roll into the aeration system right after the energy efficiency discussion. This is one of the biggest energy users at the plant. And we have found some significant ways that we believe we can improve aeration, which is really the heart of the treatment plant. That's where the nitrogen removal is happening. So what we're proposing for scope for aeration upgrades would be a comprehensive upgrade to the entire system. That would be the blowers that actually supply the air, the diffusers that get the air into the tanks themselves, the piping that brings it there, valves, flow meters, and really everything within the tanks. It's also encompassing significant improvements to the secondary control building or SCB itself, including replacing some antiquated medium voltage equipment equipment with more modern low voltage power for the blowers. We'd also be looking at code compliance, architectural improvements, structural improvements, and significant layout improvement within the building that would increase the resiliency. Right now, the blowers are located in the basement or the lowest level of that structure. So I'll talk more on the next slide, but we're proposing relocating those blowers within the building, again, to keep them out of harm's way, and that also helps us with construction sequencing. So when we look at all of those recommendations, we look at estimated construction or project cost of around $48 million for the aeration upgrades. And then on the next slide, I'll just touch quickly on how we selected the blowers. So as I mentioned, we updated the process model for the plant, worked with Veolia to identify DO targets in each one of the zones. So we selected blowers that can turn down all the way to the minimum, and then also have room for expansion to the peak flow. So they can touch on all of that required range for aeration. We looked at energy efficiency, footprint of the blowers, and then redundancy for staff operations. So the blowers that we selected are turbo blowers. They'll be located in the mezzanine level of that SCB, secondary control building, with a total of 4 blowers and space available for additional blowers if they're needed in the future. So with that, I'll touch on final settling tanks, which is the other focus area of the facility plan, not subject to the consent order, but just good to keep in our minds for capital planning for operation of the facility. So we looked at retrofitting the 4 existing concrete final settling tanks with new mechanisms, and we looked at 3 different options for technology for the mechanism replacement. Spiral scraper is the selected recommendation for mechanism replacement. So we're proposing to move forward with that. And on the next slide, similar to aeration, we're not just stopping with the mechanism. We're also looking at doing some modeling to design an energy dissipating inlet, which will help with sludge blanket stability and sludge removal, and different options for baffles and effluent launder covers to prevent algae from building up. We're also recommending some increases to RAS pumping capacity, which we'll refine as we get into detailed design. But overall, the recommended improvements for the FST area are $20 million. And with that information, I'll turn it back over to Chief Valladares to conclude us.
Thank you. So, so what we would like really to get from you guys tonight as part of the resolution that will come after the presentation is that this would be the summary of the facility plan that we plan to submit by the deadline of October 2nd. So pretty much the facility plan update will have 3 components. The first one will be that we'll, instead of we're going with our option 1 that was showing before, that is really the facility plan update, we're gonna go with the option 2, that was the advanced elimination of the outfall 002. As we mentioned, we believe that we can really increase the investment and then complete in 10 years what originally we thought we could do in 25. It definitely gonna meet our consent order. We're gonna be really investing in our asset, and we're gonna pretty much go towards the goal of advanced elimination, as you could see on all those slides, and only how many few events we ended up using it. So that is the first part of the plan. The second will be really to focus on this other 2 areas that Vanessa just explained, and that will be the aeration tanks and also the final setting tanks. I just want to emphasize that really the investment on the outfall 002 to that advanced elimination, it is really what is part of the consent order. And that will be our financial obligation after we submit the plan. That will be about $50 million. Besides that, the aeration tank and the final setting tank is not part of the consent order that we must do, but you guys gonna see in the capital request in the next few years that we're gonna start asking for money to be able to achieve that. also want to remind everyone that we do have a financial model that we follow. And as part of this year, we already put a placeholder of $50 million for the facility plan update. So in regards to the component one of our facility plan update, we're not gonna see any financial impact different than what we were already expecting. And then, of course, as we start moving towards the goal of doing the aeration tanks and the final setting tanks, we're gonna use our financial model in the next coming years to see what will be the financial impact on that on the rates. So I think that with that, this is really what we wanna show to you guys. I also wanna thank you, the team. They did a fantastic job, particularly these last 90 days when decided to move to a totally different direction, and everyone came together to be able to present this on time. So with that, I'm open to questions and
Okay. So we're taking care of the consent order. The facilities plan is going to address part of the consent order. It's going to cost us $70 million over the next 10 years. And by authorizing Chief of Operations to submit the facility plan, we're kind of committing to that. Is that right?
I just want to clarify that we're going to be committed to $50 million for the next 10 years. So this is really the commitment. The
60.
other ones, yes, 50, that is
Okay.
49.9. So let's round it to 50. The other $78 million that we identify as areas that we would like to focus for enhancement, we don't have to do it right now. We are planning to probably do that after we have most of this investment in the collection system done. So we're gonna spread out those $78 million probably after year 10. And the next 10 years after that, we're gonna probably be able to spend the 78 million.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions on this? Mr. Burnett?
Yes, my question is around whether we have any headlights with DEEP that they will be in agreement to the facility plan. Has there been any pre-discussion with DEEP to give us any insight as to whether they'll be in agreement with this this plan that we plan to submit in October?
Mr. Burnett, before we even took in consideration, really explore this, what we are calling option 2, we had a meeting with Connecticut DEEP to explain to them, and we showed the numbers with all the rain events and how many times the outfall 2 was using. And we asked them if they would consider giving us an extension so we could explore and also show that option to them. Although they didn't commit to us that they're gonna really accept that. Again, we haven't even received an answer under the consent order for the collection system yet. They understood that this is very favorable, because besides that, remember, we are also improving a lot the water quality, investing on the collection system that, as I said before, is very aligned with their environmental goals as well. So although we do not have for sure that they're gonna be on board with that, we are confident that they will take in consideration.
You'll find that out after you submit the facilities plan, is that correct?
Yeah, but we do not know when. We have to submit before if they disagree, we're gonna go back to our original plan that is really just to improve it, get the wet weather treatment for outfall 002.
Thank you.
Mr. Burnett, if I may add, we also believe that we have good language in the consent order that supports both of these options. So the second option that we are pivoting to, we think we have language there that will provide us with the opportunity to address advanced elimination of outfall 002 through the collection system. So while there's certainly room for Connecticut Deep to voice their opinion on the decision to use option 2, we continue to believe that the language is favorable for the city to choose that outcome as well.
Any other questions?
Yeah, please. And I'm sorry, I have a hard
Mr. Meek?
stop. Yeah, I'm sorry, I have a hard stop in a couple of minutes, but are these numbers, are these inflation adjusted dollars? I don't understand how if not, how do we forecast that out 10 years plus?
The way that we consider was kind of based on the models that we have it today. And that's what we were predicting. And that's why if we go back to one of the slides where we're focused area, you're gonna see that the biggest investments are really on the first few years, because we're gonna try to minimize the impact we're gonna actually maximize the impact of the infiltration to the system the first few years. So yes, we took in consideration what will be spent within 10 years, but there may be some adjustment in the future depending on how the inflation will play.
Okay, thank you.
I would also add that in the collection system rehabilitation bids that we have seen across the company, this is not buying equipment and things that have been affected by inflation, and instead we've seen relatively flat prices on this sort of collection system work that we're proposing, even through this period over the last 2 years of heavier inflation.
Anybody else? Any other questions? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Ostafine, Bovee, Manella, Burnett,
No.
Smith, Meek.
I'm a no
And
vote, thank you.
Oh, Ignary. Okay, so Meek is no. And everybody else is yay, right? I asked for a yay. You did raise your hand, but you meant no, right? Mr. Meek?
Okay, yes, I mean to vote no, I'm sorry, I didn't.
Okay. Anybody else no? Everybody else was yes. Okay, hearing no objections, that passes with a split decision. It's 6:22 PM. We'll move on to number 7. No motion necessary. Contract operation report, please proceed.
Good evening, everyone. Matt Brown from Veolia. I just want to say nice presentation to everyone. I know everyone worked real hard on that. It's very well done. Thank you. So I'll dive right into it, try to keep it brief. So in the collection system, we had over 3 miles of CCTV inspection in the month of August, and we cleaned over 3.51 miles of sewer lines. You will see there, we only did 1 manhole inspection, but to put it in context, we've done 885 this year. And our target is 600 for the year. So we did step back on the manhole inspections to focus more on surveying areas for the WPCA through CCTV and cleaning. The IPP inspection program conducted 32 inspections in the month of August. A little bit of news on our centrifuge, which is a high-speed scroll and system that creates what we call cake, or about 27% solids for biosolids that we truck out of here. We lost what originally we thought was the main hydraulic unit, but it wound up being the main scroll and bearings of the upper unit. So we actually had to remove the top half of the unit, crate it up, ship it out to Kenosha, Wisconsin for repair. That's looking to be down probably to the end of the month at least. But we have a good relationship with Synagro, our contract haulers, and they're giving us 6 to 8 liquid loads a day, which is a liquid sludge, which is allowing our facility to run just as good as it always has. We installed a brand new pump, a Keeler Brook pump station. Now you'll see my note here from August was blend tank number 1 steel structure repairs are underway and are expected to be completed. Well, they are completed. We worked with the team Fisher Tank. I got some pictures I'll share briefly of the steel work they have done, and I'll go over it more when I share the pictures. As far as regulatory, the facility was in compliance with all permit requirements for the month of August. The net DMO, MOR, and NAR were all turned in for the month of August. And then just to point something out, we averaged 11 million gallons for the month of August, which is very good. That's a great number for the summer. We also, I want to point out a couple things I normally don't, but the effluent BOD and TSS, those are biological oxygen demand and total suspended solids. That's how we measure how our plant does. Typically, when they come into the plant, those numbers are 160 to 200 milligrams per liter. And leaving the plant last month, our average was 2.3 and 2.9 milligrams per liter, which is almost a 99% removal rate. The facility's running excellent. I couldn't ask for it to run better. Now we'll move on to a couple of the items before I go into the pictures and the blend tank repairs and some of the other projects we've been working on over the summer. On the agenda, you'll notice 5 items. I'll touch on them real briefly. The stairs at Bell Island Pump Station. Our pump station at Bell Island is decades old, and the stairs are underground in a concrete vault. So they do, the atmosphere is not favorited for steel. So therefore, they're pretty rotted, and it's a safety concern. So we're going to be replacing those. The flight mixers, these particular mixers, we have 15 of them that in our facility that keep the water turning. They run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And doing inventories, we realized we only had 2 spares that were rebuilt. And we sat down with Ralph and his team and decided it'd be best if we got a couple new ones to have on the shelf because they are a critical item. The wastewater treatment generator. So the generator was put in, I believe, in 2012. And it's a Kohler unit. It's a 2.5 megawatt generator. And the generator software update, we were kind of sticker shocked by the price because to update software, but it's also components, PLC cards, and other things. We looked into alternatives, and basically what we were told was if we don't update it, we're not going to get support in the future. Therefore, if there's an issue with the generator, we won't be able to run it. We looked into different alternatives because it's Kohler, it's proprietary. They got us in that. That was our only option, was to go ahead and move forward with Kohler with the upgrade. And then the last is the blower control updates. I know they spoke about upgrading the blowers in the facilities plan, but currently, a couple months back, we did notice something because it happened if we lose SCADA or something happens to our SCADA system, we have no way to override the blower system, which means we actually lose air, which is the heart of our plant, and we can't pump air. So we actually worked with Aaron Associates, and they're going to come up with a design. They actually presented the design, and there's going to be a way where if there's any issues with SCADA or any major problems, we can literally run it standalone and take it off that panel. So it just runs by power. It'll be an on and off system, nothing fancy, but it's something that I think is absolutely crucial to, in times of emergencies, keeping full treatment to the facility. And that said, I'll share my screen briefly and share a couple pictures. Hopefully I do this right this time. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Yes. So one of the things was a fencing and signage plan that we've worked with the WPCA on. As you can see, I just took a couple pictures. This is by the main office here. We slatted the entire fence. They straightened it out. They also slatted, if you've been down here, they slatted the entire front of the facility all the way across, including DPW. As you can see here, this is with the septage receiving area, kind of an eyesore for our facility. So working with Ralph, WPCA, us, and our fencing contractor, we decided to fence and slat in the whole area. It looks a lot better. Part of the signage process, we've also co-branded our office area. It came out really nice. We have bubble letters. They stick out, the WPCA Norwalk and Veolia. And you can see here, we put new building signs in all the buildings. So we've been really working on updating the aesthetics of the facility, making it look really well. And it's coming right along. As you can see here, we have signs throughout the facility that could direct you to operations, deliveries, etc. And this is the blend tank that I was speaking of. We have two of these blend tanks. One's a sludge holding tank. One we blend primary sludge and secondary sludge to run over our centrifuge. And that's how we make what we call cake, which is a 28% solids product that gets sent out and incinerated. And that's how we keep our plant where it needs to be with microorganisms. So the Fisher Tank Company came in, they spent about 5 weeks here, morning, noon, and night. And they replaced the entire roof and all the sides you could see here of the blend tank. So what's going to happen next is we already have a contract with them. It's been approved by the WPCA. There's a coating company that's going to come in. They're going to sandblast old and new steel to get it down nice, and then they're going to do a thick coating on the inside and a coating on the outside, and that'll be ready to be put back online hopefully by Thanksgiving, because the schedule for the coating, it looks like, is going to be mid to late October, and that's about a 2-week process. That's one of our large projects that's been going on for over a year. Some of you might remember we were fixing it about a year ago. The sandblasters came and blew holes right in the side of it, and that's what led to replacing all the steel. But that came together. And lastly, I just wanted to put this in there. It was taken about a year ago, but Public Works Magazine gets delivered to probably every municipality in North America. And that is our Davidson. And that's our truck. That's WPCA's truck. We were featured in that with a chain cutter. And I just wanted to throw that in there. So we were in Public Works Magazine. It made our employee Davidson's day. And the collections team were very happy to see it. So I just wanted to share that with everybody. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thanks, Matt. Any questions for Matt? Hearing none, moving on to number 8 reports at 6:31.
The fiscal year 22-23 and fiscal year 23-24 revenues and expenditures news report is attached. Copies are included if there's any questions on that. Now we have a discussion of the WPCA engineering projects. The Bell Island Salmon Street project consists of about 8.5 miles of pipe lining. The pipe is primarily asbestos cement pipe that's in poor condition, 8-inch to 24-inch pipe size. We finalized the bid documents in early August, and the project was advertised for bid in mid-August. We're currently receiving questions from contractors, and I've been working with the Brown and Caldwell team to respond to those questions. The bids are going to be received on September 28th. The Catch Basin Disconnect Program, as part of the collection system master plan, catch basins that are significant inflow contributors to the collection system were identified. We're currently working with the Brown and Caldwell team on the project. The city stormwater field staff provided assistance by surveying catch basins in the vicinity of those to be disconnected. They were able to record dimensions and invert depths. That investigation lasted about 2-3 weeks. So it was really productive to get all that field information we needed. And now the Brown and Caldwell team is working to evaluate the feasibility of disconnecting, including potential conflicts, costs, and also evaluating that the stormwater system that will be connected to can handle that flow. The Hubble's Lane project, it's the installation of approximately 1,100 feet of new 36-inch and 60-inch sewer pipe along Hubble's Lane and Smith Street. We had a design kickoff meeting a few weeks ago on that project. The team is in the process of getting approval to perform borings and test bits along the alignment. And once we have that information, we can proceed with the 60% design. We have the Keeler Brook Pump Station replacement.
We're still working on the phase 1 for the existing and proposed site. And drawings are being prepared by Wright Pierce for review by staff and the Chief of Operations and Public Works.
On the Keeler Brook Force Main Condition Assessment, we did an investigation with Wright Pierce, who's our pump station consultant, using the Pika Smart Valve technology. There were no defects, air pockets, or leaks found. No bulk pipe loss. No bulk pipe wall loss was found, so the force main is in good shape. And now I have some photos to share of the construction.
Yep, let me just jump in with the Killer Brook Pump Station force main. It's great news because to replace it would have been about $2.5 million. So it's in good shape and nothing has to happen.
Questions on B? Not. We'll move on to C. It's 6:35.
We're gonna share our screen with the presentation. Can you guys see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, great. So collection system updates, we have the Wall Street Night Street relocation improvements project and the Dreamy Hollow project. On the Wall Street Night Street project, the abandonment of the 30-inch sewer main under Wall Street was completed earlier this month. The contractor was able to inject flowable concrete fill into that 30-inch sewer main, and they had vent pipes along the two pipe segments, and they were able to visibly see and observe that those pipes were filled with the concrete and abandoned properly. And paving is to be scheduled moving forward.
And that paving's in the parking lot at 2 Ninth Street, just for clarification.
The Dreamy Hollow project, which consists of drainage, sanitary sewer, and water main improvements in the Dreamy Hollow Betsbrook area. These are just some construction photos. This shows the installation of piles to support the RCP box culverts along Saddle Road, and these are just the newly installed box culverts. Pump station upgrades, we have Woodward Ave and 5 Mile. Woodward Avenue is mostly complete, which included architectural, mechanical, and electrical work. So most of that work has been completed. These photos show some of the exterior work, so it has been painted, fresh coat of paint, so it looks pretty good. You could see some architectural work, new louvers, new exterior doors, and moving forward is just some interior painting and exterior paving in that pump station. These are photos of the work at the 5 Mile pump station. The contractor is currently sandblasting, cleaning, coating, and performing a manufacturer inspection of the wet well. This shows the upper portion of the wet well area. And these are photos inside the wet well. The contractor is also working on the installation of new piping and pumps on the lower level. This is at 5 Mile. For SCADA upgrades, we have some wet weather updates. These photos show the updated wet weather screens. We incorporated comments that we received from the Veolia team, from the operators, to make the system more user-friendly. And in general, we've been updating SCADA as an ongoing process to just get as many operator comments as we can and just improve the functionality. Thank you. That's all I have.
And in item D, serious bill appeals adjustments to date is $24,113. And going back to the slideshow presentation, if anybody has any questions on any of the construction projects, feel free to ask away. Otherwise, that is it for tonight.
I'd just like to say that was an excellent presentation earlier this evening. It was comprehensive and well orchestrated. And you moved from speaker to speaker very nicely. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Almost like they did that before.
Yeah, it seemed practiced, didn't it?
Yeah. Anybody else? Anything? Nothing at all. Anything on the agenda, not on the agenda? Next meeting is, doesn't say. That would be
October 16th.
October 16th, correct. Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn? Mr. Igneri, all in favor? Aye, I won't do roll call. Good to see you all. See you in October.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. Have a
Good night.
good
Have a
Good
good
job
night.
again.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a
Good
great
night.
night.